Around 6 months ago, I said that I wasn't going to be showing any more retro games on this channel because, well, I just don't think many of my viewers are interested in that kind of content. That is basically still the case. However, with there not being many new games releasing at the moment that I actually care about, I decided to put some time into a game that I enjoyed for many years. Don't worry though, there is a reason for showing you this specific game, and I'll make sure that the video isn't too long as I don't want it to outstay its welcome. So what is Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2? Well, believe it or not, it was actually the first ever online RPG for consoles, and it released on the Sega Dreamcast in 2001 in the West. It was later ported to the PC and re-released on the Dreamcast as Phantasy Star Online version 2. It was then ported to the GameCube and the original Xbox as Phantasy Star Online versions 1 and 2, which included everything from the previous versions plus some additional new content. What I'm playing here is the original Xbox version of the game, and I'm playing it on a modded console that allows me to increase the resolution and play the game from an internal hard drive. Not only that, but this version of the game allows me to bypass the ridiculous Xbox Live requirement that it used to have. On the Dreamcast, PC, and GameCube, you were allowed to select the Play Offline option from the start of the game. However, the Xbox version required you to sign into your Xbox Live account before allowing you to select the Offline Play option. Nowadays, Xbox Live support for the original Xbox has been shut down, meaning that even if you had an old console and a physical copy of the game, you wouldn't be able to play it due to that requirement. Luckily, I have a modded console and the patched version of the game which allows you to create a fake gamer tag to bypass this requirement. Don't worry, it isn't like I'm hacking Xbox Live or Microsoft or anything like that. It just tricks the game into thinking that you've signed in, which allows you to get past that annoying barrier. Once you've got past that, it plays like any other version of the game. Now then, why did I want to show you this game specifically? Well, you guys know how I'm a console player through and through, and I don't play games on PC much at all. However, I do sometimes partake in emulation. I fully support the emulation of older systems for the sake of the fans who love those games and of course for archival purposes, although I don't really agree with emulating current systems like the Nintendo Switch. Thing is though, a lot of you have told me in the comments that you have gaming PCs as well as consoles, so I was thinking that maybe I could recommend this old game to you while giving you an easy way to play it if you have a PC. I would personally suggest that you download the latest version of the GameCube emulator called Dolphin, and then search for a ROM of Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2 for GameCube. Anyone who games on their PC should have a relatively easy time doing all that and setting it up and playing the game. The basic setup for the story is that an enormous spaceship called the Pioneer 2 is searching for a new planet to call home. The ship is packed full of refugees who are all just trying to escape the destruction of their original home planet. The ship arrives at the planet known as Ragol, and they try to get in contact with the smaller group of colonists who were sent ahead in the ship known as the Pioneer 1, which arrived first. Just as they establish contact, a huge explosion occurs on the planet and contact is severed. You play as an adventurer who's sent down to the planet to figure out what's going on and finds a world overrun by monsters. Throughout the game, you'll be warping between the Pioneer 2 ship, which is in orbit, and the planet Ragol itself, completing quests, leveling up, looting gear, and trying to discover the cause of the explosion and the appearance of the monsters. The ship acts as your hub area, or home base if you prefer, where you can accept and turn in quests, buy and sell gear, and access all of the game's services. The different areas of planet Ragol are set up like a standard dungeon crawler, and that's essentially what this game is. You'll start in a forest area and have to make your way through it multiple times to complete different quests. At that point, a new area will open up, and you'll have a bunch of new quests to complete in that area, and so on. Each area that you discover becomes more dangerous as you progress, and you will of course have to fight the odd boss here and there. However, I won't be spoiling that here. Combat-wise, the actions that you take are very deliberate and methodical. You can customize the button layout somewhat, but I'm just using the default layout here. If you look at the bottom right corner, you'll see some symbols with a color attached to them. Each of those symbols is a type of action, and the colors are based on the original Xbox controller. Yellow is Y and green is A, for example. In this setup, yellow is the chat window, red is the healing item, green is the light attack, and blue is the heavy attack. The way combat works is that you need to be lined up with the enemy and then press the attack button at regular intervals, as in press, 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 kind of like that. You can't just button mash because the attacks won't work that way. With the weapons I'm using, I can only get a 3-hit combo, and that requires 3 slow presses of the attack button. Attacks can miss, and you can mix heavy attacks in with your light attacks if you want to. Depending on the class you pick when you create your character, you'll be able to use things like beam swords, guns, daggers, staves, magic, and more. You can also equip defensive gear and feed various items to your mag. A mag is a small floating creature that you can see behind my character, and you can also feed it different types of consumable items in order to level it up and evolve its look and abilities. As for the rest of the game, it's a pretty typical action RPG. Each enemy that you kill or quest that you complete earns you some XP for leveling up. You level up to get stronger, rinse and repeat. You get item drops during your quests, and you can buy and sell gear, and of course you can build out your character's strength depending on your preferred playstyle. I suppose the online nature of the game is what set it apart from everything else when it first released, and now that I think about it, Phantasy Star Online really did give us an early look at what gaming would eventually become, for better or for worse. Phantasy Star Online has always been one of those games that I remember fondly. I have countless hours in the game, and I would go as far as saying that it's one of my favourite games of all time. In my opinion, it's absolutely worth trying if you have the means to do so. As I mentioned earlier, getting the GameCube version to work via the Dolphin emulator is very easy to do, so if you're at all interested and you do play on PC, that's what I would recommend you do. That said, does Phantasy Star Online hold up in the modern age of gaming? I'd say yes, but only just. I think the game would benefit from a relatively simple upscaled port to current systems, but with some minor tweaks. The only things that they would really need to do is increase the resolution and get it running at a higher frame rate, then just tidy up the character's movement a little bit and get the online portion working. If Sega could manage to do that, I would be eternally grateful to them, but as with most things these days, it's kinda hard to trust them to do it correctly. If you enjoy the video, I really hope you'll consider subscribing, and if you like what I do and want to help support the channel, please check out the first link in the video description down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.